So we're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, ADI-LIlA, chapter 2, text number 90 to 92. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So please repeat. Taichi Sabha Avatarera Krishna Sekarana Araeka Shloka Shuna Kuvyakya Kandana Taichi Sabha Avatarera Krishna Sekarana Araeka Shloka Shuna Kuvyakya Kandana Taichi Sabha Avatarera Krishna Sekarana Araeka Shloka Shuna Kuvyakya Kandana Taichi Sabha Avatarera Krishna Sekarana Araeka Shloka Shuna Kuvyakya Kandana. Similar way. Sabha, all. Avatarera, of the incarnations. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Se, he. Karana, the cause. Ara, another. Eka, one. Shloka, verse. Shuna, please hear. Kuvyakya, fallacious explanations. Kandana, refuting. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Krishna, in the same way, is the cause of all causes and all incarnations. Please hear another verse to defeat all misinterpretations. So, text number 91, 92. Atra sargo vishargascha ashtanam posanamutaya manvantare shakanukata nirodho muktirashraya dashamasya visudyartam navanamiha lakshanam varnayanti mahatmana shrutenartena chanjasa. Translation and purport. Here, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10 subjects are described. The creation of the ingredients of the cosmos, the creations of Brahma, the maintenance of the creation, special favor given to the faithful, impetuses for activity, prescribed duties for law-abiding men, a description of the incarnations of the Lord, the winding up of the creation, liberation from gross and subtle material existence, and the ultimate shelter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The 10th item is the shelter of all the others. To distinguish this ultimate shelter from the other 9 subjects, the Mahajans have described these 9, directly or indirectly, through prayers or direct explanations. Purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.1 lists the 10 subject matters dealt with in the text of the Bhagavatam. Of these, the 10th is the substance, and the other 9 are categories derived from the substance. These 10 subjects are listed as follows. So 1 is Sarga, the first creation by Vishnu, the bringing forth of the 5 gross material elements, the 5 objects of sense perception, the 10 senses, the mind, intelligence, false ego, and the total material energy or universal form. 2. Visarga, the secondary creation or the work of Brahma in producing the moving and unmoving bodies in the universe. 3 is Sthana, the maintenance of the universe by the personality of Godhead Vishnu. Vishnu's function is more important and his glory greater than Brahma's and Lord Shiva's, for although Brahma is the creator and Lord Shiva the destroyer, Vishnu is the maintainer. 4. Posana, special care and protection for devotees by the Lord. As a king maintains his kingdom and subjects, but nevertheless gives special attention to the members of his family, so the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives special care to his devotees who are souls completely surrendered to him. 5. Uti, the urge for creation or initiative power that is the cause of all inventions according to the necessities of time, space, and objects. 6. Manvantara, the regulative principles for living beings who desire to achieve perfection in human life. 7. Ishanukata, scriptural information regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his incarnations on earth, and the activities of his devotees. 8. Nirodha, the winding up of all energies employed in creation. 9 is Mukti, liberation of the conditioned souls encaged by the gross and subtle coverings of the body and mind. Ashraya, the transcendence, the summum bonum from whom everything emanates, upon whom everything rests, and in whom everything merges after annihilation. He is the source and support of all. The Ashraya is also called the Supreme Brahman, as in the Vedanta Sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, Janmadyasya Yataha. Srimad Bhagavatam especially describes this Supreme Brahman as the Ashraya. Sri Krishna is this Ashraya, and therefore the greatest necessity of life is to study the science of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam accepts Sri Krishna as the shelter of all manifestations because Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate source of everything and the supreme goal of all. 2 different principles are to be considered herein, namely Ashraya, the object providing shelter, and Ashrita, the dependence requiring shelter. The Ashrita exist under the original principle, the Ashraya. The first 9 categories described in the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, from creation to liberation, including the Purusha avatars, the incarnation, the marginal energy or living entities, and the external energy, are all Ashrita. The prayers of Srimad Bhagavatam, however, aim for the Ashraya Tattva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The great souls, expert in describing Srimad Bhagavatam, have very diligently delineated the other 9 categories, sometimes by direct narrations and sometimes by indirect narrations such as stories. The real purpose of doing this is to know perfectly the absolute transcendence, Sri Krishna, for the entire creation, both material and spiritual, rests on the body of Sri Krishna. So these verses that we're reading today is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which is explaining the structure of Srimad Bhagavatam. So even though this is Chaitanya Charitamrita class, and I'm going to talk about what Srimad Bhagavatam is, because that's what the verse is talking about. So this is talking about the first 10 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam and what is dealt with in each of them. And in relation to creation here, and the material creation. But I don't know so much about creation, really. So using this this structure, I was thinking of talking about what is being taught in each of the cantos, and it's actually a progression. So same as in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is taking Arjuna from his bewildered state, and gradually he's bringing him up to the highest state, which is complete surrender to God. And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also a progression like that in spiritual life, starting from the point of surrender to God. So the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says Janmadyasya yataha. That means the absolute truth is that from which emanates. So that's where Srimad Bhagavatam starts. And then the second verse, this is obviously not the whole verse, but Dharma projita kaitavu. And this sets the scene of what is to come. And so this Dharma projita kaitavu means Srimad Bhagavatam excludes immediately all cheating processes of religion that are simply based on external ritual and form, like external forms. And Srimad Bhagavatam says, this is not going to deal with that. We're going to deal with the absolute truth, the spiritual absolute truth. And the third verse of Srimad Bhagavatam explains that this Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all Vedic knowledge. So it's like the topmost, it's the essence of all knowledge, basically. So it's been described that the beginning of human life starts when we start inquiring. Tato Brahma Jigyasa. So it's when we start asking, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Who am I? There's the example of Lord Brahma. He was the first created being in the universe. And he was actually alone, and there was nothing around him. And he didn't know where he was, he didn't know who he was, and he didn't know what he was supposed to do. So he started looking. He started going all around space, down and up, and trying to examine this lotus that he came from and everything. And he didn't come to any conclusion about what he was supposed to do. So he asked, he thought inside himself, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? And the Lord actually, but it was like a voice in the sky, gave an answer in one word, tapa, which means austerity. So Lord Brahma, he began to meditate, and when the Lord was pleased with Brahma's austerity, he revealed all the Vedic knowledge within the heart. Tene Brahma Hridaya. So then Lord Brahma knew answers to all these questions. So basically this equates to like the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Here it's talking about the material creation, so just setting the scene of all the elements and everything that's forming the universe. And so in parallel, this is setting the scene of what Srimad Bhagavatam is going to talk about. So then we go to the second canto, which is when Lord Brahma is then starting to do things. And in the parallel, just in the same way that Brahma was asking questions and that we are asking questions, in the second canto, the sages, that all the assembled sages are asking questions to Shukadev Goswami and asking all these important existential questions. And so the main conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam is Maharaj Parikshit inquiring, because he's about to die. So he's asking all these questions to Shukadev Goswami. And the two main questions that then all subsequent questions come from, that Maharaj Parikshit asks, is what is the duty of every human being And what is the prime necessity, what is the prime duty for a man that is about to die? These are the two foundational questions of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, out of many, many millions of men, maybe one will start thinking about life. And about all those who start thinking about that, maybe one will start practicing spiritual life. And out all those, one will become a yogi. And out all the one will know me. So it's very, very rare to be inquiring, to be asking these questions, to be here and talking about these things. So the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam is progressively explaining the answers to these two questions, but in a lot of detail, because, like I said earlier, it's a progression. So we can't immediately digest or hear like the finality of Srimad Bhagavatam, because our consciousness is not on that level. So Shukadeva Goswami brings us, along with Maharaj Parikshit, gradually up. So the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is like the progression of our spiritual life. It starts from the beginning and then up and up and up, and gradually it goes to the highest point. So how does it do this? How does it bring us up? So one answer is it's explaining by association with people who know. So all the sages are together. Maharaj Parikshit is with Shukadeva Goswami, and they're in association with devotees. So this is the theme that I'm going to carry through all the cantos. That is the foundation for spiritual progress. So that was Canto 2. Then Canto 3, here in the creation, is talking about how Vishnu is the maintainer, not Brahma, not Shiva, not anyone else. Vishnu is the supreme. So this canto is establishing that there is one supreme Lord, not many that are on the same level. And so this canto is showing us that when we are in association with spiritual people, we are searching out the supreme, the one supreme absolute truth, not all the demigods and everything. This is the purpose of associating. We're searching for the absolute truth. So then, then this fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Here it's said that the Lord cares for his devotees. And how does he care for his devotees? And this is shown in the fourth canto. When we start searching for the absolute truth in the association of devotees, then the Lord sees the sincerity in our heart, and then he sends Guru. That's how he helps. The Lord sends Guru when we look for one. When we look for a spiritual master, he sends a spiritual master. And so the main story in the fourth canto is the story of Dhruva Maharaj. I won't tell the whole story, but basically he was upset, and so he went to look for Vishnu in the forest on the instruction of his mother, and he really wanted to see Vishnu. He wanted to ask something from him, but he really wanted to see him, so he started thinking about that. And then, because the Lord saw the sincerity in the heart of the devotee, he arranged for Narada Muni to be in the same place, in that forest, to find Dhruva Maharaj. And so Narada Muni became the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj, because Dhruva was asking these questions, and he really wanted to know, and he really wanted to meet the Lord. So this is like the first way that Krishna is helping us. When we start inquiring, he directs us to someone who can tell us. And one interesting point in the story about Dhruva Maharaj is that he wanted to meet Vishnu to ask him a favor. He wanted a kingdom. So he was materially motivated. And so are we, most of the time. We have some material desires, some aspirations that we want to satisfy, and that's why we approach God usually. We're looking for something, we want some peace, or we want some material things, or we want mystic powers, or whatever it is. But still, because there's some sincerity and because you're actually going to the Supreme to ask for these things, he comes, he reciprocates in that way, even if we have material motivations. There's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, I don't remember the Sanskrit, but it says, whether you have millions of material desires, some material desires for liberation, or no desires at all, approach the Supreme. Not that for some things we go to the demigods and some things whatever. No, whatever you have in your heart, just it goes to Krishna, and Krishna will really help you. And so in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us very directly, if you want to know the truth, approach a spiritual master. So again, this same theme is coming back in this 4th canto, where it's shown how Krishna is going to give a spiritual master. So then, 5th canto, which is the urge for creation, or initiative power. So initiative power is like action. So once we've been given this process, and we've been inquiring, asking questions, we've been given a spiritual master by the grace of Krishna, and the spiritual master has given us this process. So in our case, we're chanting Hare Krishna. And so we start practicing, but then the practice you have to continue and maintain. So how do you do that? How do you do that? And what is important to actually progress from this point once we're on the beginning of spiritual might? How do we keep going? It's a very important point. And again, the recurring theme is the association of people who are doing the same thing and who have the same goals. This is like the primary need for spiritual life. And so in the 5th canto, we have mainly the story of Bharat Maharaj and Jad Bharat and the deer. And this is showing us what happens if we take the process, but we don't stay with people who are also practicing the process. So summary of the story, Bharat Maharaj was a great king, and then at the end of his life, he went to the forest to dedicate his life completely to meditation on the Supreme. And he was very, very advanced spiritually, and he was on a state called Bhavli, which is like almost the highest form of love of God. But he was alone. But he was, very fixed in his meditation. And then one day there was a deer, a mother deer, who she was pregnant, and she was just walking, and then there was a tiger or a lion, I can't remember, that was running after her. So she started running and running, and then she had to leap over the river, and just as she was leaping over the river, the tiger or lion roared, and it scared her so much that she lost her baby in the river, and she went on the other side and she continued. But when she saw that her baby was dying and was just drowning in the river and she could never find it, she just died out of grief. But the baby was not dead. The baby was just kind of drowning in the river. And then Bharat, who was in his meditation, he saw this and he thought, I can't leave it. I have to save it, because the nature of the devotee, paradukha dukhi, when another entity is suffering, he wants to help. So Bharat Maharaj went to pick up the little deer, and he started taking care of it, which is very nice, and that's what we do. But the problem is, while he was taking care of the deer, he stopped his spiritual practice. He became so attached to this deer that he gave up all his meditation in a few days. And then the only thing he was thinking about all night long was this deer. And how am I going to care for it? And where's it gone? And how is it going to survive without me? And he completely forgot about Krishna. Completely. His chanting, everything. And so when he was dying, what did he think about? He thought about the deer. And Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita, whatever you think about at the time of death, that state you will attain. so he became a deer, which is not really progression in spiritual life. But great blessing was that he remembered what happened before. So even though he was a deer, what did he do? The first thing he did, he left his mother and he went to where the devotees were. So he learned from his mistake last time that he tried to practice on his own. And so this time he went to people who were also practicing, who could support him. And this is an important point, because when we're alone and we are beginning, we don't know really where the path is supposed to go. So if we slip off or something, we don't know. We don't know, and we don't realize that we make a mistake or that we start slipping, and then once we start, we're finished, like Bharat Maharaj. But if he had been with other spiritualists, they could have told him, hey, why are you not chanting anymore? Why are you, what's going on? You can look after the deer, but don't stop your practice. Because this is the result. You end up in the body of a deer. And he was like close to perfection. So yeah, this is the fifth canto, showing us how important it is to stay in the company of people who are also pursuing spiritual life, in order to be actually able to continue our practice. So then we have the sixth canto, which is the regulative principles for living beings, Manu's rules for human life. And so this sixth canto explains what the principles of perfection are, it's like guidance on the path of how to reach the ultimate goal. And this canto is explaining we're in the association of devotees, what do we gain from that? Or what do we gain from that? And the main story in the sixth canto is the story of Vritrasura and Indra. So Vritrasura he was a pure devotee, but somehow he got cursed to become a demon. So he was acting as a demon, but inside he was still a pure devotee. And he ends up in a fight against Indra, who's the king of heaven, who's also a devotee, but he's a materialistic devotee, which means he still has some material desires. He's a devotee, but still he likes his kingdom, and he likes being the king of heaven and having so many nice things. So they're fighting. And then at one point, Indra thinks, I can't do it. I'm going to die. This demon's going to kill me and I'll be finished. I don't want to do it. So he started running away, like coward, And Vritrasura, who's the demon, but actually he's a pure devotee, he started chastising Indra. He said, what are you doing? Vishnu said, you can kill me. Don't you have faith in the word of Krishna and the word of Vishnu? Don't you have faith? Whatever he says, it's bound to happen. It empowers you to be able to do that. So how come you're running away? You don't have faith. So the story is much longer than that, but this is the principle, basically. This is why we have the company of other spiritualists. Because when we have doubts, or when we're not sure which direction we're supposed to take, or we're just making some mistake or something, they're there to see that and tell us and help us to increase our steadiness and to keep going, even if sometimes we don't really see what's going on or we're not sure what direction to take. But like Vritrasura, he's telling Indra, look, you have a doubt. And then he clarified his doubt. So that's one reason why we stay with devotees, or the spiritual people. And the one other reason that's explained in the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is an example of the character of a pure devotee. So what does someone who is completely absorbed in the absolute truth, what does it look like? And how can we be inspired by that? So at this point we have already strengthened our faith and more fixed in our meditation. And so in the 7th canto, it's about Prahlad Maharaj. It's a very, very long story, but there's many, many teachings in it. But Prahlad Maharaj was a 5-year-old boy, and he was also a pure devotee. And so it's his character that we are inspired by. And his father was Hiranyakashipu, the greatest of all demons. And when he saw that his son was practicing spiritual life, he wanted to kill him. His own father wanted to kill him. So he put him in so many horrible situations. He tried to burn him, he tried to throw him off a cliff, he tried to poison him, and so many things. But what we learn by seeing other people who are more advanced is, how does he react? How do I want to learn to react? And so Prahlad, in every situation, he wasn't thinking, oh, my father is horrible, why is he doing this to me, I hate him. Or, why is God doing this to me, why is God not protecting me? Or he wasn't just lamenting. He was grateful. He was so happy because in every situation he was just thinking of Krishna. Krishna, you can do whatever you like with me. He was praying for the welfare of his father. He was trying to encourage his father to be really happy, because his father was really materialistic. So he wasn't happy, he was just frustrated and angry and not nice to others and whatever. So he wasn't happy. So Prahlad, even though his father was torturing him, he was trying to help his father. He was trying to tell other people, why are you wasting your time? Come on, try to understand the truth of who you are and what you're doing here. And so this is the other thing that we gain from associating with spiritual people, is that we can see the qualities they have and the qualities that we want to develop also. So this faith, this ability to see in every situation, to see how we can learn something, even if it's difficult or not nice or whatever it is. How can we learn? How can we deepen our spiritual practice through that? How can we bring others to that also? And how can we pray and have love for the people who are hurting us? So these are things that we aspire for, that are demonstrated through the character of Prahlad. Then there's Canto 8, which is the winding up of creation. And this canto talks about the dangers on the spiritual path, the qualities to avoid, or the obstacles that we might have. And in Canto 8 that we're actually reading at the moment, there's 2 stories. There's the story of Gajendra, the elephant, and the story of Lord Shiva and Mohini Murti. So these 2 stories show 2 different difficulties that we can have. Gajendra, he was very, very attached to material opulence, and he was enjoying luxurious life and wealth and food and company and palace, and he was just enjoying life so much. And this is the first difficulty. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you're too attached to enjoying this material energy, you can't progress spiritually. You can little bit, but then it will stop you, because you can't enjoy material energy and try to approach the spiritual energy. You can't do both at the same time, because the material energy just blinds us and puts us into illusion that we can be happy by having things and eating things and whatever, having power. So this is the lesson with Gajendra, and the lesson with Mohini Murti and Lord Shiva that we're reading at the moment, is this attraction to enjoy, or this lust to be like the enjoyer and the the controller, to have power and influence over people, whether in a subtle or a gross way. This attraction to the opposite sex, or this kind of desire to be the Lord, that is another obstacle that we are warned against in the 8th canto. Then the 9th canto, here it's talking about liberation. But it's also another obstacle that's very significant and that we talk about a lot but not enough, is offending other people, offending other living entities, offending other spiritualists. So this is the story of Ambarish and Durvas Muni. I won't tell the whole story, there's not so much time, but yeah, Durvas Muni offended Ambarish and he got into lots of trouble. It was a very difficult time for him. He was, because he offended a devotee. Although he was a great yogi. He was a great yogi, he was meditating on the Supreme, but he hurt someone. He was not nice to Ambarish. And so Prabhupada gives this example that when you approach, like you have, you want to go towards the Supreme Person, you want to go towards Krishna. And when you're very far away, it's like a mountain. Like God is like a mountain, and when you're far away, you can see it from a distance, and you just see like that, it's a mountain. So at the beginning we think, well, it's just me and God, and everyone else is just like, we don't really care. It's just me and Krishna. That's when you're very far away. But when you go closer, you start seeing, oh, actually it's not just the blob. There's like other things on it. And there's other people there, and there's animals, and there's trees, and actually there's so many things there. Because God is never alone. So when we come closer, we start to see, oh, actually it's not just me and God. It's me, God, and everyone else as well. So this canto 9 is one thing is teaching us that to see God everywhere in everyone, not just on the altar. Of course he's on the altar as well, but he's in the heart of everyone, and everyone who is here practicing spiritual life is even more dear to him. And so we can't hurt and offend the people that are here and pretend that I love God. It doesn't work like that. Because one thing that Durvas, when he offended Ambarish, he went to ask forgiveness from God. And he said, I can't forgive you. I've given my heart to Ambarish. So you have to go and ask Ambarish for forgiveness. So this is a really important aspect of Krishna consciousness. And the whole underlying theme that I've been bringing forwards, this association. We have to be very careful how we act in the company of other spiritual people. Because as we've seen so far, we actually depend on them for our spiritual life. All our progress, everything we learn, everything that inspires us, those who will help us and guide us, we have to protect that relationship with them by seeing that the Krishna is also in them. And then finally we come to the 10th canto, which here in this book it says it's the summum bonum. This is this is everything. And the last sentence in the purport here that we're reading is that the ultimate goal of Srimad Bhagavatam is to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. That's the ultimate goal of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the ultimate goal of the Vedas. Krishna says, by all the Vedas I am to be known. I am the goal of all the Vedas. He's the ultimate shelter for the heart. As Prabhupada was talking here about Ashraya. There's two meanings to Ashraya. Here in the purport he was talking about Ashraya, like that all the energy and material and spiritual rests in him, and everything comes from him. And the other thing is the shelter for the heart. It's the shelter for the soul, and that's where it's in that shelter that the soul finds complete fulfillment. And so the ultimate goal of life is to come to Krishna like that. And so the 10th canto there's a summary called the Krishna book, and this is one of the very first books that Prabhupada gave to his devotees, and it's a summary of Krishna's life and his activities and everything. So, we were reading at the beginning, Janmadyasya yataha, the absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, ta sarvam pravartate. I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. So that's the beginning, actually. That's not the end. That's just the beginning. Seeing God as the Almighty, the controller, the Supreme. That's the beginning of our philosophy. Because He's the Supreme, but there's more than that. And this is something very special about Krishna consciousness, is that we have the more intimate, more sweet relationship with Krishna. And Krishna he's the Supreme because he's, Vishnu, he's maintaining the universe, and Narayan is this and that. Krishna is just having fun with his friends. He's just looking after his cows and having loving relationships with all his friends and his family. And so this 10th canto, the Krishna book, describes who the absolute truth is in detail, not just he's like this greatest thing and everything, but who he is in detail, what he's doing, who his friends are, what he likes, what his appearance is, what he looks like. And when we have all this detail, it's fascinating, it's captivating to the mind. That's what really captivates us. And it's ever fresh also. You can read Krishna book 1,000,000 times, or you can read Srimad Bhagavatam 1,000,000 times. Every time there will be something fresh. You think, I never read that before. Oh, I didn't realize, I didn't understand that last time. Or you hear a quality that Krishna has. Wow. Suddenly you hear it and it's like, wow, captivating. So, so in the purport that we read at the beginning, the thread is, it's talking about material creation, starting from the creation and the functioning point of view, and the conclusion is that the ashraya is where everything rests, at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So the Supreme Lord is the beginning, the middle, and end of all material creation. And then the parallel thread that I've been talking about is from the point of view of spiritual progression through the cantos, and how this link is linked to the association with devotees. And the conclusion, once again, Krishna is the beginning, the middle, and the end. So we can look at it, from this creation point of view, from the point of view of association, from the point of view of what spiritual life is. The conclusion is always, it's just Krishna. That's the point of everything. So we're all looking in different places, in different ways, for that thing that will really captivate us, that will really thrill our mind and satisfy our heart. Well, that thing is a person, and he's called Krishna, and he's just with his friends and with his cows and having fun, and he's just inviting us to come to him. And all the acharyas, through all the books, they're just inviting us to go there. So there we go. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments or corrections? I hope it wasn't too much information.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Okay. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Shri Mad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.